You are listening to continuing coverage of the trial of Chad Daybell from True Crime Today and the Hidden Killers podcast. Let's go back to the courtroom.
Thank you. Please be seated. Okay, we're back on the record on CR 22-21-1623, State of Idaho versus Chad Guy Daybell. We just concluded our lunch recess, and I believe we're ready to have the jurors return for another witness. Is the state ready to proceed?
We are, Your Honor.
All right, is the defense ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, counsel. We'll go ahead and have the jurors brought back, please.
All right, please. President Gunner for your.
All right, thank you. Please be seated. Okay, we're back on the record. The state can call its next witness.
Your Honor, the state would call Hannah Munoz.
Promise, swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
All right, the witness has been sworn. Before we proceed with testimony, because there's an exclusionary order and the court has live streamed this trial as well as had open proceedings for the trial, I'll inquire of the witness. Have you been observing or watched any of the trial testimony since the case started?
No.
Okay. Have you talked to anybody else about testimony they've given in trial?
No.
Okay. With that, then, Mr. Wixom, you can inquire on direct.
Thank you, Your Honor. Excuse me. Good afternoon, Ms. Munoz. Will you please state and spell your full name for the record?
Yes, it's Hannah Nicole Parker, Hannah, Nicole, Nicole, Parker, Parker.
And do you want me to refer to you as Ms. Munoz or Ms. Parker?
Miss Munoz.
Thank you. Can you tell us, where do you live?
I live in Vineyard, Utah.
Where is that in Utah? For the sake of the jury, explain that to them, please.
It's about 45 minutes south of Salt Lake.
Okay. And is that anywhere near Springville, Utah?
Yes, it's about 15 minutes from Springville.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Springville.
And what do you do for work?
Wixom, I apologize. Could I have you kind of pull the mic down and just talk right into it? It doesn't pick up very well unless you talk into it. Thank you.
What do you do for work?
I'm a freelance photographer.
Are you related to Tammy Daybell?
Yes.
How are you related to her?
She's my mom's cousin, so my second cousin.
Would that be your mom's first cousin?
Yes.
Okay. I want to draw your attention back to October 19th of 2019. Did you that day learn of Tammy's passing?
Yes.
How did you learn about it?
I was with my mom and she received a phone call and then told me about it after.
What was your reaction to hearing that she'd passed?
I was very saddened by the news and very confused and just overall very sad.
I'd like to back up a little bit. Can you explain to the jury how often, if at all, did you have contact with Tammy during your childhood?
I didn't know Tammy super well. Like, we saw her at family events, but I was younger, so I was like playing with her kids. But yeah, we would see them at family activities.
So you learned of her passing. Did you have occasion to attend her funeral?
Yes, I did.
The best you can recall, when was her funeral relative to her passing?
It was a week after her passing-ish.
You think? Okay.
Yeah.
Did you also attend a viewing?
Yes, I did.
And where was the viewing at?
It was at a church house in Springville.
Is that the same place the funeral was held?
Yes.
Right. When you went to the viewing, did you go by yourself or did you go with anybody else?
I went with my sister and then I met family at the viewing.
What other family did you meet at the viewing?
I had my grandparents there, some aunts and uncles, and then my mom and dad came later.
Did you have the opportunity while at that viewing to go through the viewing line?
Yes, I did.
How many times do you recall going through it that night?
I went through twice.
Who did you go through with the first time?
I went through with my dad, Lindsay Parker, first.
And do you recall, was Chad Daybell in the viewing line?
Yes.
Relative to where Chad was, were there any of the Daybell children that were also in the line?
Yes.
Where were they at relative to where Chad was at in the line?
Chad was first in line, and then there was the casket, so he was at the head, and then the kids were at her feet, about 6 feet away from Chad.
Based on your own perception, do you think that any conversation that you may have had with Chad in that moment would have been heard or been able to have been heard by the children?
No.
So when you were in the line with your dad, did the two of you have a conversation with Mr. Daybell?
Yes.
And can you explain to the jury the nature of that conversation?
Yeah. So my dad asked him what had happened. That said that he was confused.
Judge, I'm going to object. There's levels of hearsay here.
Well, Mr. Exum, if they're soliciting comments of the defendant, would be an exception. If they're comments of the father, it would be hearsay. So I'm not sure where the witness is going with this. Maybe you can direct the witness to avoid that hearsay.
I will, Your Honor.
Thank you.
So ma'am, just in context of what Chad may have said in that conversation, can you explain to the jury what you first remember him saying about anything?
Yeah, he said that Tammy had been sick that day. He said that she had been vomiting and coughing. And then around 10 p.m., she had vomited again and then came to his office and said that she was feeling a little bit better. And he said that she was going to bed and that he stayed in his office working. And then around 1 a.m., he went upstairs and found Tammy on the floor. And he said that she had rolled out of the bed and was on the floor and that he found her cold and already passed.
So that was a lot of information. Just for clarity, I'm going to ask some follow-up. So when you said he described this, was he talking about the night that she passed?
Yes.
Okay. I think you said that she came to him at 10 o'clock. Is that right?
Yes.
What time do you remember, if at all, that he said that Tammy went to bed that night?
He said Tammy went to bed around 10.
And what time was it that you said he finally went to bed himself?
Around 1 a.m.
And when was it that he said that he found Tammy on the floor, passed away?
Around 1 a.m.
So is there any question in your mind that that's precisely what he said?
No.
During that interaction with him, did you observe anything about his tone or demeanor?
Yes.
What did you notice?
I noticed that he seemed calmer than I would have expected, and that he would get emotional only when my dad would get emotional and then would stop, like once my dad stopped crying.
Why did that stand out to you?
It stood out to me because I would have expected someone who just lost their partner to be a little more distraught. And he seemed calmer than I would have expected him to be.
And in fact, are you married?
Yes.
Okay. Now, later that evening, you said, I think earlier, that you'd also went through the line with your mother.
Yes.
About how long after the time you went through with your dad did you also go through the line with your mother?
About 2 hours.
Could you please just explain to the jury your experience when you went through the line with your mother?
Yes. So they were talking and Chad was telling us what happened. And he said that she had been coughing that day, and that she'd been coughing pretty violently. So he was worried about her. Between 9 and 10, she came down to his office and said that she was going to rest and go to bed. He said that he was worried about her, so he went to bed at the same time. And then at around midnight, he woke up to her rolling out of bed and hitting the floor. He said that he went to check on her and had found that she had passed.
What was your immediate reaction when you heard that account of things?
I was confused at first.
Why?
Because it was inconsistent with what I had heard earlier that evening.
Did you say anything at that time?
No.
Did you ask Chad any questions about the explanations at that time?
No.
Why not?
I was confused, and I also didn't feel comfortable. The conversation was being had between Chad and my parents.
So without saying anything that she may have said in response, did you later explain this difference to your mother
Yes.
and to anybody else?
To my mom and then later to Samantha
When did you first explain it to your mom?
that night after the viewing.
No, I don't have any more questions for this witness at this time.
All right, cross-examination, Mr. Pryor.
Yep. Good afternoon. Ma'am, this information, did you ever give a report to law enforcement?
Yes.
When did you do that?
In August of 2020.
Have you spoken to anybody else since August of 2020 about this in terms of law enforcement?
I've met with investigators a few times.
How many times?
Twice.
Okay. Do you recall when those were?
I don't.
Okay. Did you talk to the prosecuting attorney before you decided to testify today?
Yes.
Okay. When did you meet with the prosecuting attorney?
I met with him once about a month ago. And then this morning,
And which prosecutor did you meet with?
Rocky,
Rocky. Do you know Rocky?
outside of court proceedings, no.
Okay. Now, your testimony is that at midnight, Tammy went downstairs to check on Chad in his office. Is that right?
Objection misstates the testimony.
Sustained.
Did you mention about him going downstairs to meet with Tammy going downstairs to meet with Chad at any point?
Yes.
Okay. And what did you make reference to?
When I was talking to Chad with my father,
Yeah.
he said that Tammy had gone down to say that she had thrown up and was feeling a little better and then was going to bed.
Okay. Okay. So Tammy was upstairs in her bedroom, and then she went downstairs to go into an office to talk to Chad. Is that what you understood?
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware that this is a one-story home, ma'am?
No, I've never been to their home.
Okay. And then again, when you were in the line with your mother and you mentioned something about going downstairs, which downstairs were we going to?
Again, I haven't been to their home.
Okay. Nothing else, Judge. Thank you.
Thank you. Any redirect?
Ma'am, is there any question in your mind that you've testified as accurately as you possibly can today?
Judge, I'm going to object. It goes beyond cross-examination.
Well, I'll sustain. I think that's actually an improper question. You can ask a different question if you like, Mr. Wixom.
Thank you. Ma'am, when you heard Mr. Daybell explain the events with your dad, did your dad ask him anything about the layout of the home?
No.
Did you ask him anything?
No.
Do you doubt at all that he said that he?
Judge, I'm going to object. He's trying to bolster the witness. It's inappropriate.
Well, I'll let you finish the question, Mr. Wixom, and then I'll rule.
Thank you. Is there any question in your mind that what Chad said to your dad was that Tammy had went downstairs?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay. That will conclude the testimony then of Ms. Munoz. Is she going to be recalled potentially by either side?
Not by the state, Your Honor.
Not by the defense, Judge. Thank you.
Okay. If you're here under any subpoena, you're released from the subpoena. Thank you for appearing and testifying today. You can be excused. All right. The state can call its next witness.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would call Patty later.
If you know, how do you spell that last name, Mr. Wixom?
I believe it's Later.
Thank you.
solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. You.
All right. The witness has been sworn. Before we start with direct, I am going to inquire, because this court's being live streamed as well as open to the public, I need to ask the witness, have you observed or watched the trial in any way?
No.
Okay. Have you discussed anybody else's testimony with them that they've given at trial?
No.
Okay. Thanks for your responses, Mr. Wixom. You can inquire.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ma'am, will you please state your full name and spell it for the record?
It's Patricia Later, Patricia, Later, Later.
Thank you. And ma'am, where do you live?
I live in Spanish Fork, Utah,
Where is that relative to Springville, Utah?
just south of it.
Have you ever lived in Springville, Utah?
Yes, for many years.
Which years did you live there?
From let's see, 1995 or 1996 until after high school. And then I moved to Denver and then came back and lived there. I've lived there.
Ma'am, are you related to Tammy Daybell?
Yes, I'm her first cousin.
And did you have a strong relationship with her when you were younger?
Sorry. I did. We were 7 months apart, and we pretty much were like sisters. Grew up with each other.
Could you take a moment and just expand to the jury on that? How much time did you spend with her? How well did you know her growing up?
So my mom was a single mom, and my Aunt Phyllis, her sister, used to watch us. And then as we got older, they lived in Anaheim and we lived in LA. I'd go out and spend weeks during the summer with her, and we went on family trips together. At one point, we wrote letters back and forth to plan a show for a camping trip we were going to go on. And then when I moved to Springville, we went to high school together. We were best friends, drove to school every day. She encouraged me to join band, even though I didn't play an instrument, so we could be together and go on a trip to California with the band. And also she encouraged me to take some classes with her, so we'd have classes together too.
So am I hearing correct? Did you attend high school together?
That's correct.
Did you do any other social activities with her in high school?
We did lots of stuff. We went on double dates together. We pretty much hung out on the weekends together, watching movies or whatever kind of thing we do.
As adults, have you stayed in contact with each other prior to her passing?
Yes. When she lived in Springville, I used to go visit her. Well, when I lived in Springville, we worked at the same school, elementary school, Art City Elementary, for about 2 years, I think. Art City Elementary. And she was the computer tech, and I was teaching. I taught 5th grade for a year, and then I taught 3rd grade. And she would come down and leave little notes. She would leave little notes for me with like inside jokes. I still have one in my nightstand. Excuse me. I would visit her at home sometimes, and I'd be out driving and I could just stop by and we'd chat with each other and visit.
Do you recall which years it was that you worked together at that school?
It had to be 2010. When I graduated, so 2010 to I worked there 2010 to 2016, and she had left a couple of years before that.
Were there other years during that same time frame that you lived in Springville when Tammy did?
Yes.
What years were those, the best you can recall? That
I lived in Springville?
That you were both living in Springfield at the same time?
That whole time. I can't recall what year she moved to Utah or to Idaho. Sorry.
Okay. After she moved to Idaho, how often did you have contact with her?
At first it was like every couple of weeks, and then it kind of went down to a month. I don't know, we didn't talk as much anymore. We would text each other back and forth if like we heard a song that we used to listen to, or we both liked Harrison Ford. So if something on the news was with Harrison Ford, we'd send each other the links and things like that.
Did you attend any did you attend any family gatherings together, any weddings or any occasions like that?
During that time?
Yes.
She came to my wedding in 2016, and then we attended a couple during the time she was in Idaho. Sorry. Are you talking about when she was in Idaho?
Any time since the time she moved to Idaho.
She came to my wedding. That's probably the only time.
Okay. I want to draw your attention back to October 19th of 2019. Did you learn of Tammy's passing that day?
Yes, I did.
How did you learn of it?
My mom called me my mom called me on the phone and she was crying hysterically and told me Tammy passed. And it didn't register who she said because it didn't make sense that my cousin Tammy had passed. So I said, who passed, Mom? And she said Tammy, and I still didn't make sense. And I said, who are you saying? And she said, Phyllis, my Aunt Phyllis called and told me that Tammy passed.
Why was that confusing to you?
Just didn't make any sense.
Why not?
She was so young and healthy.
Did you have the opportunity to attend her funeral and viewing?
Yes, I did. I attended both the viewing on Monday and the viewing prior to the funeral on Tuesday.
Which Monday and Tuesday relative to the date she passed? Do you remember?
The ones following it was really quick.
Okay. And did you did attend the evening viewing on Monday?
That is correct.
Who did you attend it with?
I went alone. I had when I found out she was passed, I actually was on fall break in California. So I flew back on Monday. I think my flight got in like 5:45. And then I went to the funeral or the viewing after that.
When you were there, did you see your daughter Hannah?
Yeah. So when I walked in, I was really upset and kind of looked for someone comforting, like some family.
And did you and Hannah have the opportunity to go through the viewing line?
Yes, that we did.
Were you standing next to each other when you did that?
Yeah, she was right next to me with her hand on me. Yeah,
Did you see Chad in that viewing line?
I did.
Did you observe anything about his emotional state or demeanor that night?
When I was going through, he was just talking with people, and when someone would cry, he would cry, but he was mostly just visiting with whoever was coming up to him.
Did anything about the way he was acting strike you as unusual?
I felt like he should have been more sad, I guess.
Did you, at that point in time, did you engage him in any conversation?
Well, I had gone through the line really quick the first time, and then the second time, I went through and hugged her kids, and then walked past the casket, and then went and talked to Chad.
Was Hannah with you when you went to talk to Chad?
Yeah, yes, she was.
Can you explain to the jury what was it that you and Chad talked about? What did Chad say?
I just went up to him and told him I was sorry for his loss. And we hugged, and I asked him what happened.
Did he say?
He said that Tammy wasn't feeling well and she was coughing a lot. And she threw up. Well, he asked if she was okay. She threw up, and she came to tell him that she threw up and that she was going to bed. He asked her if she was okay, and she said yes, she was feeling better after she threw up, and then she went to bed. And then we both started crying, and then before I left him, he told me that Tammy loved you so much.
Did he say anything else or more specifically about how he'd found that Tammy had passed away that night?
Yeah, he said that he had, so she went to bed and he stayed up working. And then he went to bed later. I think he said Tammy went to bed around 10 o'clock and he went to bed later. And then he woke up in the morning because she rolled out of bed or fell out of bed. And that's what woke him up.
Anything else that you can remember in that conversation that he described about how he'd found Tammy?
She was kind of half on and half off the bed.
The next day, did you have the opportunity to attend Tammy's funeral service?
Yes, I did.
Was that held at the same place?
Yes, yeah, at the church.
When you attended the service, did you happen to hear Chad speak?
I did.
Was there anything about his talk or speak at the funeral service that caused you concern or stuck out to you?
Yeah, there was a couple things that he said that I just thought weren't very nice.
What were those things?
He said that the first thing he said was that she wasn't easy to live with. He said that she was lazy. He said that she had depression, which she did, but to say it out in front of the whole congregation, I thought was, I guess, embarrassing for her. I don't know.
So why were those things of concern to you?
I just didn't think they were very nice.
Was there anything about his demeanor at the funeral service before, during, or after speaking that you noticed?
I noticed after Emma told us a story about Tammy wanting more pets and that she would just kind of sneak them in. And I looked over at him and he kind of looked like a little concerned, and then he was laughing about it. And then
when you say him, did you mean Chad?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And then Garth told a story about Tammy playing video games, and he would be her lookout for when Chad got home. And same thing, he looked kind of like concerned, and then he started laughing. But it was like a split second, because I looked over at him to see if that was upset him, because I would, I guess, be upset too, but he just laughed it off too. Sure.
Why did those things that Emma and Seth had shared, why were they of concern to you?
So it was Emma and Garth. I just felt like they had to hide what they were doing. Tammy had to hide what she was doing from Chad.
What do you mean by that?
Like to be careful to not get in trouble, I guess.
In trouble with who?
Chad.
Were there occasion when Chad and Tammy lived in Springville that you would go over to visit Tammy at her house?
Yes.
When you would go visit her, was there anything that you would notice in those interactions that caused you any concern about Chad?
Judge, could I have some foundation as to time, date, year?
Mr. Wexham.
Sure. With respect to that question, can you think of a time that you went to Tammy's house, and the best you can recall, let's tell the court and the jury, what year did this happen?
So it was the same years that we lived in Springville. 1995 to till the time she moved to Idaho.
So is it fair to say that you would visit her often at their home?
Yeah, at least once a month, if not more.
Were there any particular visits that you had that stand out, that you ever had concerns with Chad's behavior? And I'm asking you to try to recall when these were, if you can.
I don't know specific dates, but when I would go visit, normally I just visit when Chad wasn't there, and I would stop by for a quick visit, and then it would end up being hours, and we'd visit about our kids and old memories and whatever. And eventually Chad would get home. He would come in and sit next to her and put his hand on her knee and visit. But I always kind of got a feeling that I needed to go home, like at that time.
Did he ever ask you to leave, or
No.
that was just a feeling?
Just a feeling.
Was that a consistent thing that would happen when you'd go to her home?
Yes.
Was there ever anything that you were aware of that you had any tension or relationship issues with Chad that might make him feel that way?
No.
Your Honor, I don't have any more questions.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Wexham. Cross-examination, Mr. Pryor.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Lader, it sounds from what you testified to that you and Tammy knew each other quite well as you were both growing up at a young age, right?
That is correct.
And then in 2015, when Tammy and Chad moved with the family to Utah, that contact dissipated quite a bit. Would that be fair?
Yes, when they moved to Idaho, that happened.
Right. And would it surprise you to learn that we have Tammy's phone records and correspondence, all her electronic data? Would it surprise you to learn that in the last year of her life, we don't have any communications between you and her of any kind?
I don't think I feel like that's not correct.
Okay. You feel it's not correct, or do you know that there was no communication between you and her the last year of her life?
We would message on Facebook and text. I don't think that's correct.
Okay. So it's Facebook is what you're telling me. That's how you communicated with her?
Messaging and
Okay.
and she would call me.
Now, when you were in the line on the first day of the services, you mentioned that you were there with your daughter, correct? Or with Ms. Munoz.
I came in by myself and then she came up to me.
But you were standing there with Miss Munoz when you went through the line together, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, what your testimony is that Chad told you at the time that he woke up in the morning and Tammy had fallen out of bed in the morning. Is that correct?
Can you say that again? Sorry.
That Tammy fell out of the bed and that she had passed away and that he discovered her in the morning. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that she had been having a coughing fit all night. Is that right?
She had been coughing prior to bed. Yes.
Okay. And while you and Miss Munoz were standing there together, was there any discussion about Tammy or Chad going upstairs or downstairs in the house?
I can't recall.
Okay. So you don't recall that ever happening?
I don't recall.
Okay.
I don't remember it.
Okay, Judge, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, does either side intend to recall the witness?
Judge, the state may call her in rebuttal.
All right. With that in mind then, so there is an order, Ms. Lader, that prohibits witnesses from watching other witnesses' testimony during the trial, so please comply with that. In the event you're recalled, I'll be asking you if you have watched any of the other trial proceedings since you testified today. If you have watched them, then there might be an issue with you being able to testify or violating that court order. So with that, that will conclude then your testimony. You can go ahead and step down.
Thanks, Your Honor.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes. All right. Thank you. Ms. Blake, we had a sidebar there just discussing scheduling and the court's inquiry as to whether or not we're going to have another witness on the stand today. Could you address that, please?
Yes, Your Honor. The state had requested a sidebar and had indicated to the court that today moved a little quicker than anticipated, where we had agreed to take tomorrow as a day off from the trial. The state's next witnesses, in order to accommodate their schedules, we have lay witnesses traveling from out of the area and an expert witness that we anticipate putting on the stand Wednesday. Because of that, and with tomorrow being off, in order to avoid holding witnesses over, we have them prepared to come in Wednesday. We should have the rest of the week filled with witnesses, but given tomorrow being off and just how quickly we moved through things today, we would be requesting to convene today, but reconvene Wednesday morning and then have a full week of witnesses the remainder of the week.
All right. We did discuss that in a sidebar with counsel. Mr. Pryor, any other comments to add on our scheduling before I address the jurors?
No, Judge.
Okay, well, I'll just note it is complicated and complex to schedule for a trial that goes this length and try to anticipate how long or short witnesses may be. So unfortunately, while we certainly got plenty of time to continue on this afternoon, we'll need to break early to accommodate that. I would just ask both the state and the defense to acknowledge how important the jurors' time is and that we keep things moving as quickly and efficiently as we can to get through the trial. But with that, I do understand the complexities of putting all this together. And so if you'll be mindful as possible of that to fill these days to get as much evidence as we can so the trial doesn't extend longer than necessary, the court and I'm sure the jurors would appreciate that. With that in mind, then we are going to conclude for today. We'll be recommencing with more testimony starting Wednesday morning. We will not have court tomorrow. With that break, then I'll again admonish the jurors, please continue to abide by the court's instruction that you not discuss the case amongst yourselves or with anyone else. While you're on this break, please do not investigate the case, look into the case in any way. If you see any media or any other reporting of the case, please try to avoid that. And I'll look forward to seeing you all again Wednesday morning at 8:30. That will conclude our court for today, and we'll be in recess.
All right, please.
All right, thank you. And thank you, everyone, today for complying with the court's conduct.
There's more to come in the trial of Chad Daybell. Press subscribe so you don't miss any of our continuing coverage right here from True Crime Today and the Hidden Killers podcast.